Today, we're doing something a little different. This isn't just a spooky story. Think of it more like an autopsy. We're diving into a unique case file on a predatory event at 48 Hollow Creek Road. We're going to break down the evidence, build a profile of the subject, and deconstruct its methods. And it all starts with a single, terrifying distress call.
7 seconds. That's all it was. The operator's log is chillingly brief. It just notes raw, tearing screams, followed by a sound they described as someone choking on liquid. And then, complete silence. This is our ground zero. This is the very first piece of the puzzle.
So when first responders got to the scene, that's when our real data collection begins. What they found established the baseline for this whole event. And honestly, their report reads less like a police log and more like a series of escalating impossibilities.
Okay, first thing they see, the front door is wide open. Your first thought might be a standard break-in, right? But as you're about to see, nothing about this scene was standard.
The moment they step inside, the atmosphere is just wrong. It's warm and humid, which doesn't match the outside at all, and then there's the smell, a mix of copper, like old blood, and rot. That's not a structural smell. That suggests something biological is going on.
And this is where the evidence goes from strange to physically impossible. The officers reported that the house itself was moving. The floorboards didn't just creak, they literally rippled. And the walls, they made a sound that was described not as the house settling, but as a creak of pleasure.
And the final piece of evidence from that first sweep is the one that just breaks your brain. Handprints. Not on the floor, not on the walls, but planted firmly on the ceiling. At this point, any conventional explanation is completely off the table.
So with these initial findings, we can move from just collecting evidence to actually building a profile of whatever is responsible for this. Because this is not a random haunting. This is an active, intelligent predator.
So here's our working theory. The subject is a sentient, predatory environment. The house isn't just haunted, the house is the predator. It shows signs of being a living organism, and more importantly, its actions aren't random. They're calculated, they're intelligent, and they are absolutely malicious.
Let's look at the physical traits, because this stuff is wild. We've got documented reports of the house rhythmically expanding and contracting, as if it's breathing. The walls felt soft and yielding, almost like skin. The glass in the windows wouldn't break, it just became malleable. It could perfectly mimic human voices and even generate its own internal climate. These aren't just quirks, these are consistent biological functions. Now, this thing doesn't just rely on brute force. It's sophisticated. It has a 3-stage psychological attack. First, it starts with auditory mimicry, whispering a victim's name, using their own voice against them to create unease. Then it escalates, distorting their senses, fogging mirrors, creating phantom footsteps. Finally, it manipulates space itself, making hallways stretch on forever, creating doors that lead to nowhere, trapping its prey in a state of pure panic. This is a deliberate hunting strategy.
So how does this strategy actually work on a person? Well, our case file gives us a perfect, tragic example. Her name was Emily Rowe, and she moved in just 3 weeks after that initial incident. Her case lets us deconstruct this whole process step by step.
Emily's profile is critical to understanding why she was targeted. She was 26, just out of a bad divorce, and emotionally just spent. She was looking for a fresh start, a safe place. That vulnerability, that powerful sense of hope and exhaustion, that's what made her the ideal prey. This predator doesn't seem to hunt the physically weak, it hunts the emotionally fragile.
And the house didn't strike immediately. It was patient. It followed a very clear, methodical 7-day escalation. It was a process designed to completely break her down before the final consumption. Let's map it out.
Look at this timeline. It shows just how patient this predator is. Day 1 is simple stuff. Weird, grinding sounds, maybe her name whispered. By day 3, it's making its presence known. The whole house starts breathing again. She hears a distinct, wet chuckle. Day 5 is a huge escalation. This is pure psychological warfare. It starts mimicking her own voice, crying for help. And by day 7, it's over. The environment itself becomes the weapon. The walls soften and all the exits are sealed.
So what is the ultimate goal here? This is the central, most terrifying thesis of this whole case. It's not about physical consumption. It doesn't eat flesh and bone. As the source material says, it doesn't eat bodies. It eats the part of you that wants to be saved. It literally feeds on hope.
The final act of this feeding is called memory extraction.
The victim is held in place while their identity, their core memories, childhood, first loves, every happy moment are methodically ripped away to, and I quote, feed the walls. The person is made into a hollow shell before the very end.
So after the consumption is complete, the house doesn't just stay in that monstrous state. No, the case file documents a fascinating and frankly horrifying final stage, a complete environmental reset. It's preparing the hunting ground for the next victim.
And when I say total reset, I mean total. Look at the comparison. All evidence of the attack, the cracked phone, the handprints, those skin-like walls is just gone. The house effectively heals itself, it covers the trauma with fresh paint and new carpet, and then it resets the trap with a for rent sign. The final observation from the source material confirms the cycle is beginning again. It notes that inside one of the mirrors, a new reflection was seen practicing a human expression. It was practicing how to smile. And then the house itself let out a long exhale, a sign of digestion. The final log entry simply reads, "Hungry again."
And this brings us to one last, deeply unsettling question. A predator that feeds on hope, on despair, on terror, it has no use for a smile. That's not part of its hunting toolkit. So why is it learning? Who is it practicing that smile for? Is it evolving a new lure, or is it preparing for something else entirely?